All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Javier, and I'm the marketing specialist for the Sonoran USED at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Thank you all for joining us for the Starting a Project Search webinar. Just a few housekeeping notes. Please hold your questions for our presenters until the end when we have our discussion session. And for that session, please type your question into the chat box or use the raise hand button. If you can't see the raise hand button, click on the manage participants button at the bottom and you should see that raise hand function appear. And now, without further ado, I will now introduce Heather Wolf, the statewide coordinator for Project Search and Employment First Initiatives, and peer mentor Gabe Martinez. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Like Jeff said, my name is Heather Wolf. I'm the new statewide coordinator for Project Search here in Arizona, and I also work with the Employment First Initiative. And we are through the University of Arizona, Sonoran USED, and Gabe is with me. Gabe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Gabe Martinez. I work.
And Gabe, oh, sorry, go ahead, Gabe.
I work for Lucy Ed with Jeff.
Perfect. So this webinar is just to kind of talk about if you're interested in starting a new Project Search program. We're going to go through what Project Search is, kind of the history, what's going on in Arizona, and then if you're interested in having more conversation about that, what to do. So we'll start. So what is Project Search? Project Search is a business-driven transition program that is for young people with an intellectual or developmental disability. By business-driven, we mean that the interns will go to the business site, they'll start their day there, and they'll end their day there, versus going to school, having a bus transport them to the work, and then transporting them back to school, and then going home. The program takes place entirely at the business site. Students are known as interns, and they participate in their final year of high school eligibility. So this would be their last year of high school. So they've gone through have all credits, probably but one, and then this is their final year. Because after this final year, then they will go to work. So the interns experience a total workplace immersion while learning relevant, marketable, and transferable skills. They learn skills that will help them get a job after this internship. The focus is going to be competitive, integrated employment. So that means after the program, they don't go into group supportive employment, they don't go into the day program. The focus is independence, working, making a paycheck. So once again, Project Search, it's a 9-month program. It basically just follows your school schedule. It's a full day schedule. How the program's outlined throughout the year is they have a new employee orientation, just like anyone else. It usually is about a 2-week period where they learn about the rules of the host business, business etiquette. Then they go through 3 unpaid rotations. Each rotation is about 10 to 12 weeks, depending on the school calendar, and that gives them a different variety of work experience. And then in between each rotation, there's a reflection week, and that reflection week kind of talks about if they like the rotation, how did it work, and then also how to prepare for their next rotation, whether that's an interview with the manager. So it's just a whole kind of business immersion. The daily schedule can be flexible to each site. Typically, it's about 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., and the first hour and a half is for classroom instruction, for curriculum, and that is used with the Project Search curriculum. Then they'll go into the rotation, and they'll have about 5 hours of work experience per day. They come back to the classroom, and they kind of debrief and have a half an hour. So with this business-led program, there are supports in place. You have an instructor, 2 skills trainers, natural supports, which come from managers, mentors, just anyone in the host business that the intern really relates to. And then also there are adaptations and accommodations as needed for the intern. So some of the history about Project Search is it was developed at Cincinnati Children's Hospital Medical Center in 1997, so over 20 years ago, by Erin Riley and Susie Rutkowski. How this started is Erin Riley was the ER head nurse, and she kind of saw a lot of turnover happening in the ER, but then she also saw a lot of people with IDD coming in and out of the doors being treated. And she thought, there's kind of an unrepresentative workforce for this population. So she partnered with Susie Rutkowski, who is with the local school system as a head special ed director, and Project Search was born. Currently, they're in over 600 sites across the U.S., 48 states. The 2 states that are underrepresented are North Dakota and Maine. And there are over 10 countries, including Canada, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Holland. I believe Israel's in there too. So it's a very international program that is proven to work. The industries, it started in healthcare because a hospital kind of represents a little city. You have a cafeteria, you have maintenance, you have patient care, you have transportation. You have all of these little bubbles within the hospital that are good for training in different businesses. It's grown into government, university, banking, hospitality, manufacturing, warehouse distribution, insurance, biotech, pharmaceutical, goes on and on. Basically, if you have a business with over 500 employees, a project search can work. And you can see the employment rate for competitive employment was 77.7% in 2017-2018, and that is the national average. So we'll go into that more when we talk about Arizona outcomes versus national outcomes. Okay. Continuing with the project search model, one of the benefits to having a project search is they have these fidelity components that really make project search what it is and make it so successful. Some of them is that the outcome is competitive integrated employment. Once again, the goal is employment and independence, not group supportive, not day programs, it's competitive employment. So the intern has to want to work when they leave this program. Another key fidelity component is the collaboration piece. So there's a bunch of braided funding that goes into project search. You have the school system, you have VR, you have DDD, a community rehabilitation partner to provide long-term supports, and a skills trainer. And then you have others that are coming and going. So the collaboration piece with project search is very unique because of the braided funding. Once again, it is business-led. The intern does not go to school every day, they go to a business every day. Another key component is having a dedicated, consistent, seamless on-site staffing. So it's really important to have a business liaison that is there year after year, an instructor that is there year after year. I understand sometimes skills trainer and paraprofessionals, they have a high turnover rate, but it's important for the fidelity model to keep the same consistent person there year after year. And this makes the intern feel much more comfortable. And another key component is the focus on youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I'll say it again, competitive employment, the definition for project search at least is that they work at least 16 hours per week. The intern is paid by the business at the prevailing wage, so they're not making some minimum wage, they're making a competitive wage. It's non-seasonal, so it's not going to be just summer work or winter work, it has to be a permanent position. And they have to work in an integrated setting, so among coworkers who have and who do not have disabilities. That is the project search definition of competitive employment. So intern eligibility. Typically, the student is going to be 18 to 22 years of age. Once again, they have to want employment as their final result. They want to work and become independent. They agree that this will be their final year of high school. So once they finish project search, they cannot go back to high school. They will be a graduate of the school system. They have to have an IEP. A current significant barrier to employment. When we say significant barrier, it could be communication skills, it could be social skills, skills that they can work through at project search to gain employment. So it would be hard for someone to interview without having the skills that they learned at project search. That's kind of a significant barrier. Since they will be going to a business every day, it's important that they have the appropriate hygiene, social, and communication skills. Sometimes they might not have they'll have appropriate skills, but they won't have all of the skills necessary. But that's where Project Search will come in and really build the skills to make them employable at the end of the internship. It's important for the intern to be able to take direction and change behavior. Adapting and being flexible in the business environment, as we all know in our current situation, is very important. So learning those skills is important in the internship and having that ability to take direction and change behavior. Also, the intern will not require one-on-one supervision. They will have the on-site team there at all times in case they need them, but they have to have the independence to be able to work independently. At first, they may need more support, but the goal is complete 100% independence on that internship rotation. So supports are in place for the intern, but they do not require the one-on-one supervision. Talking about a little bit more about the intern eligibility criteria. They have to follow through with the VR intake and work with counselors to develop an IPE. So how we're moving with this, our 2 new sites that we have in Maricopa County, we have a dedicated VR counselor for that site to make the transition seamless into long-term supports. So we just have to make sure that the intern will be able to follow through with their intake and really work with the counselor. The intern must be willing to explore public transportation options and travel training. Now this can be a little tricky because we have a lot of parents out there who don't want their children on public transportation. It is an individual basis, but we think about when you go to work, you have to know how to get to work and get home independently. So the goal is to explore public transportation and travel training and then kind of brainstorm how can that look after the program's finished. So they have to meet the business requirements. If it's a hospital, you'll definitely have to do a drug screen, a TB test, pass a background check. It kind of revolves around what the business has their employees do, and that's what the intern is going to have to do. So it is a selective and competitive process. I've been involved in a few panels, and there are a lot of people who are applying because it's such a great program. So it is a competitive process for the interns, and that's kind of relates to the real world when we're all looking for jobs. Okay, so training and instruction. Like I said, the goal is that the intern will be ready for competitive integrated employment at the end of the internships. So they get this through the hands-on experience, the 3 internship rotations that they have, and then also a curriculum-based instruction that happens at the first hour and a half of the classroom time. So they have the different internship rotations. In these rotations, they're learning marketable, transferable skills, these skills that will transfer across industries, but they are core skills that people learn. Once again, the internships are not going to be a complete position because that's illegal. So it's really just a teaching moment where they're teaching skills, not jobs. They really focus on skills, task analysis, and it's how that intern will be successful. The tasks will reinforce the curriculum. We'll go through the curriculum in the next slide, in the next slide, and then you'll see how the tasks that they're given kind of reinforces what they're learning in the classroom. Project Search really focuses on complex and systematic skills. So they can start with a basic skill, but then they'll layer on more skills that will help the intern be more marketable in the future. And then they'll have a portfolio of skills at the end of the internship. One good thing about Project Search is the daily evaluation and feedback that the interns are given. So at the end of the day, the intern comes back, they're kind of able to debrief what went on that day, and then they get feedback consistently from their managers and their mentors, the skills trainer, and the instructors, because they're all on site all the time. So they're able to really kind of help that intern process what's working and what's not working. Moving into the Project Search Employment Skills Curriculum. It's a curriculum that focuses on total employability skills. So they start with team building, how to do teamwork, how to work with coworkers, social skills, communication skills, goes into workplace safety. Typically, this workplace safety is going to be focused towards the host business sites that they're in, but also it can involve another wide range of PPE, kind of work safety stuff that will transfer across industry to industry. Technology is a big piece. They learn how to use stuff on Chromebooks or iPads, how to give presentations. They have employment planning meetings that they learn how to lead themselves through PowerPoint presentations. Self-advocacy is a big part of Project Search, learning how to know how to ask questions and advocate for yourself. Maintaining employment is a big piece. We know it's easy to get a job, but it's harder to keep a job. So learning those long-term skills that will make the intern successful in their employment. Financial literacy is a big one, budgeting. A lot of interns will start a bank account and learn how to budget if they're getting a paycheck. Health and wellness is a new piece, but through a lot of research, it's known that people with IDD kind of suffer in this area. So Project Search is adding this into their curriculum. It's both physical and mental health wellness. I was just on a call yesterday and I was talking to one instructor and she was talking about how they do a Wellness Wednesday every day, and it was good to hear that they're actually doing some wellness. And then preparing for employment. That could look at interviewing skills, resume building, whatever kind of skills that intern needs to actually get the job and prepare for employment. So it's a full circle curriculum focused totally around employment. So Project Search in Arizona, we had a big growth about 10 years ago, and we haven't had much since. Currently, there are 6 sites in Arizona. We have 4 young adult sites, 2 high school sites, 2 new sites starting in August. So right now, our young adult sites in Maricopa County, we have Luke Air Force Base, Renaissance Glendale Hotel and Spa, and Sanmar. Those are the 3 that we have in Maricopa County. And then we have 1 in Tucson, that's Banner University Medical Center in Tucson. Moving forward, we're only going to have high school sites because that's how VR is preferring to fund Project Search. So we'll be preparing with the school system. And our 2 high school sites are down in Tucson. We have Banner University Medical Center South and the University of Arizona. The 2 new sites that we have are starting this August are both in Maricopa County. We have Mayo Clinic, who's paired with Paradise Valley Unified School System. And then we also have Banner Health Gateway, who are paired with Gilbert Public Schools. So we're very excited about the growth that we're having here in Arizona now. We hope to have a lot more in the future. So like I said, moving forward, we'll only have high school transition sites because that's how the funding is going to be able to be available. Our goal is to have at least 2 to 4 new sites per year because it is a long process to get started, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we just want to expand across Arizona and provide opportunities for all students in Arizona. A little bit about the employment outcomes that show that Project Search does work is that you can see in 2014 and 2015, the national average for Project Search, and this is competitive integrated employment, was 75.5%, and Arizona was 100%. And that was, for Arizona, the average hours for the interns who were hired per week were 30.54 hours. The hourly wage was $9.02 per hour, and that was 24 of 24 interns that were hired. In 2015, you can see we were still above the national average. Our average hours per week were 27 hours, and then the average hourly wage went up to 10 hours, $10 per hour, and the interns that were hired were 31 out of 31. In 2016 and 17, it looks like the national average dropped a little bit, but oops, we stayed at 100%, and the average hours per week dropped a little bit to 26 hours per week, but the wage remained the same at about $10 an hour, and that was 37.30 out of 37 interns hired. In 2017 and 2018, the average hours jumped for the Arizona to 36 hours per week, and the hourly wage also jumped to $11 an hour. And they did 45 out of 45 interns that were hired that year. So you can see our numbers are pretty good in Arizona compared to the national rate. I feel like as we grow, we might have growing pains, but we're staying strong. So starting a project search and internship, how to do that. So you can work with me, the Sonoran USED, to bring all partners to the table, and we can present and provide any knowledge and information on project search to partners that you want to bring in to this program. We need to coordinate and develop a steering committee with all the local partners, and that's going to be your school system, your local VR representative, the Sonoran USED, and a host business site, and we can kind of work how to plan ahead for the next project search that you are wanting to start. And once we get all partners committed, one agency needs to sign a project search licensing agreement and pay $16,000 for the licensing fee. That is a one-time fee. There is a maintenance fee for that year after year, and the licensing fee does charge a lot of TA, so you get 3 different TA options, and it has a lot of perks to it. So now I'd like to introduce Gabe. Gabe was a project search intern, and I will let him take over.
I was an intern at University of Arizona. My 3 internships rotation were at the Recreation Center and Fuel Modern and the bookstore. I employed the University of Arizona Sonoran USED as a peer mentor. In my quote, project search helped me prepare myself for a career, and it was the right thing to do.
Gabe, what year did you finish project search?
I finished in 2016.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to everyone about project search?
It's good program for each young adults to come in to learn and meet new people.
Perfect. Thank you, Gabe. So that wraps up our How to Start a Project Search webinar, What is Project Search? I'd like to thank Gabe for giving his testimony about what he did at Project Search, and our marketing specialist for putting on this webinar. And if you have any other questions or you would like information about getting a project search started with your school system or host business, please feel free to contact me. I have my contact information up. We are also recording this webinar, and we will put it on our Sonoran USED website under the project search page. So are there any questions right now? I'll open it up to questions. Oops.
Hi, Heather. It's Lori DeSico, Cave Creek, and I have
Hi, Lori.
question. So the licensing fee, when you said that one of the entities would need to pay that, how is that happening right now? Is that coming 100% from a district, or how's that working?
So it's kind of interesting you asked that. I've seen it both ways right now. At one site with the new development, it was the host business, and at the other site, it was the school system. So they've kept it separate. They haven't shared the licensing agreement. It does have to come from one entity.
And then and I apologize, I had to pop on a little bit late. Did you cover what the district's requirement as far as staff needed would be, or the numbers of students? And I apologize, you can tell me later if you already covered that.
No, I didn't. The number of students is usually 8 to 12 at each site. The staff that the school district has to provide is a instructor and skills trainer, which is also like a paraprofessional. And then VR will supply another skills trainer on site that will be hopefully in the future funded through a CRP for long-term supports provided in job development. So school system is instructor and 1 para for 8 to 12 students.
Thank you. And then do you anticipate allowing other districts to participate, like tuition in students to be at the ones that are already established, or does everything coming forward, you anticipate those being new businesses?
We're trying to keep it one school system to 1 business. That's how the true model is. So moving forward, I think we're trying to do just 1 school system and 1 business partnered together.
So Heather, I'm Brandy Kitzberger down in Tucson, and I actually worked for Project Search through Pima JTED, and I'm assuming that it's still the same down here in Tucson. Currently, the Project Search down here services all the districts. So how would that be looking forward if an agency wanted to be involved and partner with a school district and a business?
So I know that's a little different model than what we're working towards because they go through the Pima JTED. I think Susan might want to jump in on this because she has a lot of the history with it. Susan, do you know how that will look with Tucson Unified and Tucson and JTED?
Well, I'm going to try to answer what I think Brandy's asking, and then let me know if I'm not being clear, because I know who Brandy is and where she works. Are you asking about the provider role and the community rehab provider, Brandy?
Partly that, but then also going along with what Heather was referring to was one school district to 1 business, because that doesn't currently happen in Tucson. So I was just curious, through if there was an option through the provider to provide Project Search in the future, how would that look without stepping on people's toes and like Pima JTED, for example?
So really it's a conversation. We have told, we're very involved, as you know, with all the Project Searches, and the JTEDs, for folks that don't know, is like an extension of a classroom, and we that's how they got started in Arizona. But we've moved, in the direction of some of our sites up here, young adult, as Heather mentioned, where our funding sources aren't looking to expand young adult. But we, it shouldn't ever look like a competition. That's our goal, is to not have it feel like that. There are more students than we know that we can serve. In Project Search. Obviously, Project Search can only really house 8 to 12 at a business site. And so we're really hoping that school districts look at this as, if you want to deliver the program as a school district and partner with businesses and do it that manner, that's absolutely a route to go. If you happen to be a school district that has a JTED in your district and you choose to have that conversation and have that we work with them and have them deliver the project, that's okay too. And so let's just say a school district in Tucson wanted to they really wanted to serve more students. That's the entire purpose of Project Search, and what we're doing is expanding the pathways and more opportunities for students. So if a school that currently works in the JTED or works in that capacity and they funnel students through the JTED, they could easily work with us and again, partnership, and say, we have a business that would love to do this. We would love to serve our, 12 kids in our district. We may still send some through the JTED, but we'd love to have a business site over here. And those are all possibilities. And so really it's a conversation. It's helping people understand that this model is, we can be as creative as we want. And again, we've talked a lot with the current sites about this is not competitive. For those on the phone, the Snoring You Said gets no kickback or no funding to deliver and facilitate Project Search as the administrator. We just simply want to look at every possibility to create a Project Search to expand the opportunities for students. Hopefully that helped answer that question. And then I just briefly want to mention the community rehab provider, again, for those that might not know, that's an agency. It's a vendor provider. We use different terms in Arizona, but that's typically a partner because they'll carry on and provide the long-term job supports for individuals that need them. And we want to make sure that we're working closely with vocational rehabilitation, which is the funder of the second skills trainer and all new development, or that paraprofessional. And we have a very specific agreement with them right now to work on model development. So there's pieces of this that will look different in a couple of years, but in the next couple of years, we're going to be working through some of the kinks and how this will look. We have to build capacity. We've got to make sure that people are really looking at competitive employment, are aligned with the Employment First Initiative, are job coaches that can carry on, and just making sure we have skilled professional staff to build that capacity across Arizona. So we're still in, I'll be honest with you guys, we're still in a lot of conversations about how this is going to look even in August, but we may be more involved, as Snor and you said, initially on the front end, and then, you know, bringing our community providers in as soon as possible. That's the goal. We just have some development to do. Really trying to shift some things that have been done in the past just because we haven't had that expansion for different reasons and different factors, and really trying to figure that out through model development. So hopefully people understood all that, but let me know if you need me to clarify anything.
Mm-hmm. So Susan, one quick question. Could an agency such as Workability be like the JTED and be the conduit to the business and the school districts? Could that be part of the model?
I'll see if Heather has anything to add too. I've never personally seen that. It's usually a business-led or a school-led across all the states. But I mean, anything, we could always have conversations to look at what that looks like, and we may have to pull in national project search because all states, it's hard to compare apples to apples because everybody kind of has different partners across the states. But I don't want to say no to anything right now, and I don't think we do, because we're kind of open to listening and being creative about all of this. So we could have an offline conversation, but currently it's typically the business or the school district that lead it.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with Susan. I haven't seen it before, but we're open to conversations.
Our community rehab provider, it is such an important role to be part of Project Search in whatever capacity that looks like, because we know that you all as providers are the ones that carry on the work. Once they're finished with school, once they're finished, you know, with that side of things, they do go into the adult world, and that is, they will be working with agencies and providers. We all know that, and we need to make sure that relationship and that's seamless. So again, we're having multiple conversations to make sure we are building that capacity across Arizona.
Are there any other questions out there?
Comment?
I will say, with my contact information up right now, there is no period in between my first and last name for my email address. That is a typo. So that is how my personal email address is. I must have typed it out of just natural typing. So there is no period in between heather.wolf. So just a little side note.
Oh, and I see Jeff just put it in the chat box too, if you guys need to grab it from there.
Thank you, Jeff.
I just want to say this is a really exciting opportunity for our youth in Arizona. As being an instructor previously, it was very exciting to see the growth that our young people were able to demonstrate by being offered an opportunity to stretch their skills and abilities. And I'm really excited about this for our youth, because I think it's really going to help them understand the expectations of post high school, because so many of our young people don't really understand what's going to happen after high school. So I just want to say I was really excited to see this, because I lived the project search world for 4 years, and do believe that this is a great model for developing the skills that you need. So thank you for opening that up.
Yeah, thank you, Brandy.
And Brandy, this is Susan. We really appreciate that. And I'm putting a couple of people I see on the spot if they wanted to add anything. John, they're in Tucson, or Janet, because they've been part of Project Search as well for many years in different capacities. And I don't know if you guys don't want to say anything, that's fine, but I didn't know if you wanted to add anything. And yes, I'm calling you out.
Hey, Susan, it's good to see you. No, I'm very excited, and I've already reached out to Maggie. I see that Nikki's on the line from Tucson Unified, and really excited to potentially bring back the model that we put up in Maricopa County with the Distribution Logistics Center. And Susan, you need to come down and check it out. It is like one of the biggest and baddest on the beach right now. So getting Team 7 Distribution Center going up. Got an amazing team down here, and we're actually taking the opportunity to rebuild the Science Resource Center. It's going to have its own building, and it's going to be designed after the Core-Mark model that I worked at, as you know, up in Phoenix. So we're really stoked, and I'll be reaching out to Heather and whoever else to get it rocking and rolling down here again.
Oh, thank you, John. That's exciting to hear. That's the kind of thing that we, with our partners, I know a lot of you probably don't know who John is, but I won't tell just because it's not my business, I guess, to say who you are and your background, but to think that way, because he's not in the special ed world like by trade, but believes in it, and has really helped us in a lot of ways over many years expand. He was one of the first people at the table, along with Janet Holt, who is a special ed director at ASU Prep currently. I was there too, but many, many, many years ago in a very different role, and to continue to see the success. The last thing I wanted to add too is one of the things that we really want to make sure you guys are aware of too is, just because they get jobs in that year out, or some of that data that we've collected, the nationals have collected in our state, what we do want to be real careful of, and this is where our providers come in and our CRPs really, is to make sure people retain. Unfortunately, what we've seen in a lot of cases when we go back to look at where our Project Search former students are, they were working, and you saw those 100% rates, but they might not be anymore. This is across the board with all disabilities, you guys know, but I would love to see the 5-year data, which we often never see in projects, period. But that's where just making sure we spend all of this front-end time, and that's where I go back to the belief around employment first, that no matter the disability or the severity or the significance of it, people can work. And it may not look the same, the path may look different, the hours may look different, but we have got to get in that space and believing that people with disabilities and intellectual and developmental can work and will work, and helping them retain, just because that's really important to make sure that we don't just place them and then think that they're good. And also not placing as much as an entry level. National Project Search is really big about really looking at people's interests, preferences, and strengths and where they want to be, versus grocery stores, which is okay in some cases, that's what people want to do. But I know Erin, the founder, when I was at the National Project Search Conference last year, she really hit home with the audience that we need, we're starting to see more go into entry level and the food and, the fluff and all that. And so we really need to make sure that we're helping people find their place where they want to be, not just because there's a job opening. Again, that's across all people and disabilities, but just making
we need to raise
expectations.
expectations.
Yes.
And that's part of Project Search, is raising expectations.
Well, Susan and Heather, I think one of the things that make Project Search as powerful as it is because it's not kind of a in and out, quick, one and done sort of a thing. Being in the host business for that period of time does give you the opportunity not only to learn those soft skills, learn some of those
industry specific skills, but then you have that opportunity to do that transitioning again from that program into an actual job, and hopefully it doesn't feel as rushed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have never seen businesses more excited. I mean, you know, Heather touched on this, but to have Mayo Clinic spread the word and starting to understand disability more and what they're asking of us, and Banner Health too, to provide beyond Project Search to their staff to be more disability friendly, and just to understand all of those things has been unreal, to open those doors and those conversations. And we see that changing some of our landscape in Arizona generally with businesses. This is a great opportunity for them to see the wonderful skills that the people that we work with every day can bring to their business. It is a true win-win situation on both sides. So we're very excited to have those partnerships up here, and hopefully, you know, more and more across Arizona.
So we do have a few more minutes, or I can end the webinar and respect everyone's time, give the gift of time. So I really appreciated having the conversation with everyone and talking about Project Search. It is a passion of mine. I hope you will reach out and we can further this conversation and maybe get one started for your school system or business anywhere in Arizona. So thank you for taking your time and listening. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Heather.
Bye.